Hey everyone, Houston the Meandering Piper. I hope everybody had a great weekend and had a good as Monday as possible. And before we get started, I apologize for any of the shaking. I'm actually in the truck and I'm holding my phone because I can't find a steady place to put it. So, also, I want to share my to-do list with you. Here coming up this week, I think I need to get one more VR out, so I'll be doing that. Got a couple of tobacco reviews planned, or at least one, that I'm for sure about. I don't know about the second one yet. And I think I'm going to do a few shout outs later on this week. Did a few shout outs for VR, and found out that those are really fun. I enjoy doing those. I enjoy, trying to find new people, and the shouting out was fun. So we'll be doing more of those in the future. My new goal is to try and at least do one per video. And if I forget to do one, I'm sorry, but there's just so many out there, and I get so scatterbrained that it's kind of hard for me to keep track of everything. So, but that's what we're going to try and do. And as y'all can probably guess, this is going to be one of those truck talk videos, since I am in the truck. So, but I had a few ideas I wanted to share. But before we get to that, we'll get to the business end of things. Got the Stanwell Featherweight, the 245 poker, and it's about time for a reaming on this thing. It's starting to get a little caked up there. I'm just making a mess. But in it, I got Old Joe Kranz. It's the last little bit I had in my jar there, so I'm going to enjoy it. Just got off work. We're sitting out here at the yard. So we'll do this here truck talk real quick. The title for today's video, I think, is going to be 3 things that'll make your life easier on the road. And these are things that I kind of had to learn the hard way. So if there's any new truck drivers or aspiring truck drivers out there, maybe this will help y'all not do the same thing that I did. So, because a couple of them kind of sucked. But I love this stuff. I'd say this is probably my favorite Burley blend so far, anyway. Anyway, number 1, having an emergency fund. And the reason I say that is you never know what's going to happen out there on the road. Just an example, this was right after I started. I hadn't been solo but a couple of months. And the very first truck they put me in was an old Peterbilt. I forget the model number. It's that aerodynamic one. I don't know, it looks kind of stubby to me. But anyway, they had me in one of those. And the thing had been rode hard. I mean, I don't know how many drivers it went through before me, but whenever I got it, the thing was a little worse for wear, and it wasn't a very reliable truck. But anyway, I was up there in Iowa. It was January, February, somewhere in that range, 1 or 2 months after I went solo. And the thing breaks down on me. Luckily, it broke down on me at a truck stop. I had it parked for the night, and it just wasn't going to go anymore after that. Anyway, with it being winter, ended up temperatures dropping. It was down in the negatives that night. The thing broke down. I couldn't idle the truck. The APU didn't want to work. It didn't have a bunk heater in it. And I about near froze. I did everything I could. I had a Coleman sleeping bag that I laid on top of my bunk for a little bit of extra padding. So I got dressed. I was fully dressed in layers inside the Coleman bag, and then just about every other bit of clothing I had in my bag ended up stuffed in that sleeping bag with me, just trying to stay warm. Now, if I would have had an emergency fund, I could have got a hotel for the night, and I wouldn't have had to have froze. Excuse me for a minute here. Nose itching. But I didn't have an emergency fund, so I like the near froze death. Usually you can get a hold of your company and they'll cut you a com check for a hotel if you're having issues like that, or at least give you an advance on your check. But couldn't get through to anybody, and darn near froze to death. That's one example. The other example, after I've been at it for a while, I was headed to this place, and I was their first delivery. They didn't even have the parking lot and all that done yet. It was just, you know, still dirt and everything. They were still waiting to pave it. Anyway, I get there, and as I'm making my delivery, it just starts pouring rain. So I'm out there trying to do a driver unload in the rain, and it takes me a few hours to get this truck unloaded. And by the time I go to leave, it's so soggy that the truck doesn't have any weight on the drive tires, and I can't get going. You know, and I'm just digging myself in deeper. The more I try to go, I'm spinning my tires, digging myself in deep. Well, luckily for me, there was a tow truck right across the street. You know, big old wrecker. And bad thing was, I didn't have an emergency fund. So I ended up having to take a $200 advance on my pay to get the wrecker over there to pull me out of the dang mud. So if I would have had an emergency fund, wouldn't have had to worry about that, wouldn't have had to worry about the $200 coming out of next week's check because I got stuck in the dang mud. Number 2. Now, well, actually, you know what? Let's go back to the emergency fund real quick. After I learned my lesson there, I think what I ended up doing is setting aside $500. And I didn't set it all aside at once. I just took a little here, a little there, and built up until I had $500. And I just kept it stashed up in a cabinet in my sleeper there, you know, and in case I needed it. And there was a couple of times I had to dip into it, but it wasn't for anything too bad and too major. But, you know, it was just a nice peace of mind there knowing that I had it. And of course, I mean, you can do less than $500, you can do 200, 300. I mean, some guys, you know, probably have a couple of thousand stashed back, you know, for an emergency. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But, you know, me, my needs, you know, $500 was plenty, and very rarely did I have to dip into it after learning my lesson not to do dumb stuff like that out on the road. But, you know, it was there just in case I needed it. Now we can go to number 2. And this is 2 things, but I kind of lumped them together because I think they do kind of tie into one another. First one is trip planning. Now, I had an issue with that whenever I first started. I always, you know, would, let's just say, not plan my trips very well as far as, you know, where I'd be fueling, where I was going to be stopping for the night, how much time it'd get me from point A to point B. I mean, because until I started driving a truck, the only traveling I did was for vacation. You know, big difference. So, but, excuse me for a second, got Champ here. Ah, there we go. But anyway, yeah, I had an issue with that. Another big part of that is communication, and how it ties into the trip planning is letting your company know what's going on. If you got your trip planned out, something goes wrong, you need to be communicating that. You might have planned on being someplace at a certain time. Turns out maybe there's an accident blocking the road. You're going to be delayed a few hours. You know, you need to communicate that to dispatch. I mean, I know they don't always understand, but at least you got it documented. Hey, you know, you're covered, you know, or at least in theory. Excuse me a second, I got in. Another bit of communication is your radio. And I was one of those drivers, whenever I first started, I was afraid to talk on the radio. You know, I'd listen to it, you know, or I'd have it shut off, you know, or whatever. I would very rarely talk on it, you know, if at all. And going back to the whole thing of being, you know, stuck where there was an accident or whatever, you know, most of the time if you got your radio on and you're communicating with other drivers, you know, you can go around all that mess. You know, a perfect example of that is I was out there on I-44 in Missouri, in between Joplin and St. Louis there, and they had a really bad accident, and I was heading eastbound westbound, you know, they gave me a heads up. I had my radio on, and you know, I was able to go around it. I was able to get on a side road and, you know, save myself about 3-4 hours of time. So, you know, communication is very important, whether it be with dispatch, other drivers, or, you know, just whatever. And the third one's a big one. And this is one, you know, that a lot of people have issues with, and I'm not going to lie, I did too whenever I first started out. But just learn to make some simple repairs. I mean, this was something big. You know, the company I started out with, they didn't want drivers, you know, messing with the trucks, working on the trucks. They always said, you know, you need to call road service, you need to bring it into the shop, you know, you need to do this, you need to let the mechanics do it or whatever. But there are certain, you know, repairs that you can do yourself. I'm not going to wait 3-4 hours for a mechanic to change a headlight for me. I'm not going to wait for him to do that, you know, fix my lights. Like if I'm having, you know, just a little short, you know, I can go in there and fix that myself. Especially if I'm out on the road and I got a delivery to make. You know, I don't want to be wasting time sitting at a truck stop waiting on their shop, or having to pull it into a terminal waiting on them to, you know, get to it. You know, I need to get that delivery made, and then I can get it into the shop, you know, get it fixed. As long as I can, you know, fix it good enough to hold it over, you know, I'm good to go. And, you know, being local, this is another issue. You know, I've had, or seen drivers, you know, come up, you know, start pitching a fit, you know, oh, well, you know, they were late on this load, you know, it took them this long, you know, this is, for example, 6 hours, you know, to get their, you know, truck fixed. It was in the shop, and, you know, they're just all upset about it, you know, throwing a fit, whatever. And you ask them, you know, what was wrong with your truck? Oh, it was missing a mud flap. Oh, if it's missing a mud flap, why didn't you change it? You know, or put a new one on. You know, I can do a mud flap in 20 minutes. So, you know, just doing little basic things like that, you know, can save you a whole lot of time and make your life a whole lot easier on the road, especially if you're an over-the-road driver. You know, well, even local drivers like me, you know, whenever we're at the terminal, we can, you know, go into the shop there, talk to the mechanics, and my company, we got what's called a driver care package. You know, it's a little, like, 1-gallon Ziploc bag, and it's got fuses, it's got lights, marker lights, headlights, tail lights, brake lights, you know, just little things like that, a few extra nuts and bolts, you know, anything you might need to make a quick little repair while you're out on the road. And I'm pretty sure other companies have it too. I mean, if you can grab one of those, I mean, change the headlight if you need it, you know, change a marker light if you need it, make sure your fluids are, you know, alright. If you go into the shop and say, hey, can I get a gallon of oil and a gallon of antifreeze, they'll hook you up, you know, just take it, put it under your bunk, and you got it for whenever you need it. I'd even go so far as to say, hey, you know, you got an extra mud flap laying around, you know, grab that extra mud flap, throw it under the bunk. Next time you're at the truck stop, you can spend a few bucks to get an extra couple of, the to-go DEF things. Throw that under your bunk in case you get stranded out somewhere. You're going to be idling for a while. You obviously don't want to run out of DEF. Just, you know, dump that gallon in there. You're good. Replace it later. And a lot of this, you know, if you have to buy it yourself, just talk to your dispatcher. Going back to communication, like, hey, I'm going to need a mud flap. You know, just call him up, you know, and say, hey, you know, I need to replace a mud flap. You know, this is what it's going to cost. Can you, you know, get me a credit, or, you know, can you approve me for a reimbursement for this month, or for this much? And as long as you take the receipt, send it in with your paperwork, scan it in, whatever you do, however you send it, you know, most of the time you'll get a reimbursement for it. So, that's no big deal there. I mean, that's probably got to be, you know, one of the things that, you know, I don't know, it just kind of, you know, makes me wonder, you know, okay, why wait that long, you know, to get something that simple fixed? And, you know, when you could have done it yourself in 20 minutes. It don't even take 5 minutes, you know, to change a headlight on this thing. You open the hood, you know, open the, you know, waterproof cap, twist it a quarter of a turn, pull it out, unplug it, plug it back in, stick it in, twist it in a half a turn, and then, you know, put the water waterproof covering thing back over it. I mean, just that simple. But anyway, I'm starting to get off topic here. I'm starting to rant now. But yeah, just a quick recap. 3 things that'll make your life a whole lot easier while you're out on the road. Have an emergency fund, even if it's not, you know, a whole lot. You know, maybe just $100 or $200 to get you started. That'll be just fine. Plan your trips, and, you know, keep up the communication. Talk to your dispatchers, you know, the office. Talk to other drivers while you're out there on the road. There's a wealth of information you can get, you know, if you got your CV on, just going down the road. And, you know, just learn the basic repairs. You know, that'll save you a whole lot of time and a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of griping. You know, you don't want dispatch griping at you for 6 hours because you didn't make a delivery, because you waited 6 hours to change a headlight. You know, just simple little stuff like that. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I'm going to go ahead and get on off here. My shift's finally over, and I am ready to head for the house. But like I said at the beginning of the video, got a VR coming. Going to do a few more tobacco reviews. And we're going to start doing shout-outs, because that's a lot of fun. You know, I'm going to start, you know, trying to find new people and stuff like that and do shout-outs. We might even do veteran shout-outs, you know, just people I enjoy watching. So, be looking forward to that, and thank you to all my subscribers. I think we're at 68 now. That's kind of crazy. I didn't believe there was that many people that enjoyed, you know, listening to me talk that much. So, thank all of y'all for that. So, but anyway, we're going to back it on off here. And y'all have a great day. We'll see you at the next one.